Hey, y'all, and welcome to the next episode of The Crazy Short Hairy Dude. As always, I am your host, The Crazy Short Hairy Dude. And on today's episode, we are going back in time a little bit. We're continuing our series on the classic Universal, or just the classic monsters in general, but specifically looking at like the Universal pictures. Uh, And so we are headed to Egypt for this one, the land of the pharaohs, a land of mysteries buried by centuries upon centuries of sand. For many years, archaeologists have been unearthing more and more in an attempt to learn about what life was like in ancient Egypt. Pyramids, statues, ancient palaces, treasures of all kinds. But be warned, some of these treasures are guarded by curses and mummies. On this episode, we are going to dive into the history of Universal Pictures' famous movie and film franchise, The Mummy. So let's get into it and be careful of those flesh-eating scarabs. So the inspiration for the original 1932 film The Mummy started a decade earlier uh, with the discovery of a lifetime. In November of 1922, a British archaeologist named Howard Carter and his team were digging in the Valley of the Kings when uh, they found a step. And this step led down to another, and to another, and to another. And eventually, those steps led down to a sealed doorway. A doorway that hadn't been opened in thousands of years. And behind this sealed doorway was a previously undiscovered antechamber. And on November 26th, 1922, Carter and his team entered and found it miraculously intact with thousands of treasures. This was the tomb of King Tutankhamun, otherwise known as King Tut. This was unprecedented because most tombs in Egypt are already emptied by tomb robbers. So things started to. So this was a huge monumental discovery. Everything was intact. All the gold was there. Every artifact, and King Tutankhamun himself was there. He was mummified and everything. And so, yeah, this was a huge discovery. It made news worldwide, and everybody who had access to the radio or newspaper, because this was 1922, uh, they were all kind of engulfed in this story of this find. But things started to happen in that decade that convinced some people, and the newspapers kind of ran away with it, uh, that there was a ancient curse on the people who had unearthed the dead pharaoh. This curse arose kind of as a legend after the subsequent deaths of a few people involved in the unearthing and associated with the expedition. The most famous of which was the sudden illness and death of Lord Carnarvon, who had funded the expedition. Um, his death, however, most agree was due to a mosquito bite that later got infected, and it was a very common way to die at the time. So mosquitoes carrying West Nile virus and malaria, things like that, and then just killed him. So news, like I said, news of King Tutankhamun's tomb spread all over the world, and soon even more people were searching Egypt and other places too, specifically Egypt, for mummies and their tombs of treasure. So, with all this in the mind of the public, Universal Studios decided to capitalize on it by adding another monster to their growing cinematic universe, and to give another film for uh, their lead actor at the time, Boris Karloff, and that was a cursed, undead Egyptian mummy. brought back to life, and who better to play him than Boris Karloff? Honestly, because he had already played another corpse who brought back to life, except this time he would have more lines. So Karloff in the film, he only spends just a few minutes actually wrapped in the whole linen wraps and looking like a mummy. Um, the rest of the time, he looks like an extremely ancient old man, so he's just covered in wrinkles from head to toe. Uh, and so, actually, Funko came out with some pops, little minifigures that you could collect a while back, and they were the Universal monsters. So this is Boris Karloff's mummy, which there, maybe there we go. There's the lighting. Yeah. So Karloff only spends like a few minutes at the beginning of the movie like this, and you don't really get to see much of him in that. Of course, in sequel Mummy movies, you do see the Mummy dressed more like that throughout the entire film. Uh, but the original story involved a Egyptian high priest named Imhotep, who the character Imhotep was actually named for an Egyptian architect who helped build one of the first Great Pyramids. Um, so in this story, however, Imhotep is a Egyptian high priest who falls in love with the pharaoh's daughter. And after the princess fell ill and died, Imhotep stole a sacred and forbidden scroll to try to bring her back from the dead. Imhotep was caught mid-ceremony and punished by being mummified alive. Thousands of years later, a group of archaeologists find his mummified remains and the scroll, and they accidentally unleash a deadly curse uh, by bringing Imhotep back to life. And Imhotep finds a young woman who is the reincarnation of his long lost love, the princess Anck-su-namun, and uh, he attempts to bring his love back by sacrificing the young woman. Of course, being a movie, we know the monster doesn't win in the end. But Universal went on to make several more films and a few involving the Mummy movie, the Mummy, and most of them did not include the character Imhotep. They created a new mummy menace, very similar in story to Imhotep, but with a different name. Uh, this mummy was named Karis, and Karis was the monster for the films The Mummy's Hand, The Mummy's Tomb, The Mummy's Ghost, The Mummy's Curse, and I think possibly I had to go back and rewatch it. Even Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. Um, and for most of these films, Karis was played by Lon Chaney Jr., who is also famous for playing the Wolfman, and he also played the Frankenstein monster in Ghost of Frankenstein, and he played Dracula in the film Son of Dracula. So Lon Chaney Jr. kind of got to play all of these characters for Universal, at least 4 huge roles. In the 1990s, Universal decided to breathe new life into the Mummy, and they hired director Stephen Sommers and an all-star cast that included Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, John Hannah, Arnold Vosloo, and Oded Fehr. And so in 1999's The Mummy was a remake, but not exactly a remake, because it didn't exactly follow. It followed the basic plot of the original film, but it breathed new life into it. It added more action, more romance, more humor, and some more horror, honestly. And it combined the fun and adventure of Indiana Jones and the horror that Universal had been known for with their original franchise. Now, this successful Mummy movie immediately was followed by The Mummy Returns in 2001, and a spin-off movie, The Scorpion King, in 2002, which had its own sequels, and then The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor in 2008. Uh, The Mummy Returns, hands down the best of the Mummy movies. Um, I have to put them: The Mummy, 1999's The Mummy Returns, and then 1932's The Mummy. Those three are the best. In 2017, Universal announced that they were going to revive their monster universe by creating what they called the Dark Universe. And personally, I was really looking forward to it because I love the old monster movies, and I thought this was going to be a really good idea. And so the studio reorganized um, itself a little bit, and originally they were going to start with the film Dracula Untold. It didn't do so well in the box office, so they decided to kind of restart their cinematic universe again with a remake of The Mummy, starring Tom Cruise. And the film had its moments, but ultimately it just was not that good. The visual effects were stunning, and the story, the premise of the story was good. And yeah, I love Tom Cruise as an actor. He's great in the Mission Impossible movies. He's great in The Last Samurai and Top Gun Maverick. He's great. But The Mummy was not his greatest movie. It was not his best work, in my opinion. Um, Honestly, the best thing about this film was Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Yeah, I mean, he was the best part. But with the box office failing of this Mummy movie, the planned Dark Universe ended just about as quickly as it began. So maybe one day Universal will get their act together and bring back the magic of the original MonsterVerse, but with their current direction, and I kind of doubt it. I enjoyed Blumhouse's take on the Invisible Man. I was really disappointed. They lost me on the Wolfman. They lost me completely on that one. Um, but yeah, so the best mummies are going to be 1999's The Mummy and 1932's The Mummy. Well, that is all the time we have for today. I hope y'all are enjoying this series as much as I am. I know some of these videos are a little shorter than others. Maybe they'll keep people's attention better. I don't know. And as I said in the last episode, I'm going to be going to the Big Texas Comic Con in San Antonio this weekend. So be sure to check out some photos and shorts on Facebook and Instagram, and I'll be posting some videos here on YouTube. In the meantime, I hope you're well. I hope everybody's happy. And until next time, may the Lord Jesus Christ bless you and keep you. See you later.